Okay, today I'm going to give you a step-by-step process for how to complete the homework. We've been getting a lot of these turned in, and I think some of the confusion was from my part just not being clear. So I want to give you a guide that you can always refer back to check how to do the problem. All right. It starts off, as you can see here, it has the numbers you need to do. The first thing you need to do is just read the problem. So, Dakota's family is driving from San Diego. The total distance is 274 miles. First, they drive 135 and 4 tenths miles and stop for lunch. Then they drive 87 and 4 tenths miles and stop for gas. How many miles do they need to drive to complete their trip? Now, you might notice that I've already annotated. The first time, there should be no drawings on there, but I had to complete it before. All right, step number 2 is rewrite the task. I encourage you to do this just with words. And if you're having a little bit of trouble with this, try just explaining what's going on in the problem. All right, well, a family is taking a road trip. They drive part of the way and they stop. Then they drive again and stop. And I need to figure out how far do they still need to go. I didn't use any numbers, but I'm just kind of explaining it, just kind of mapping out the scenario as if it was really happening. Okay, so that's what I did in number 2. Rewrite the task. Number 3 is annotate the problem using cubes. Cubes is an acronym that we've been using in class. Okay, and the C stands for circle the key numbers. We talked about this, and in this problem, all the numbers are key numbers. But if it said Dakota, who is 8 years old, and her family are driving to San Diego, we wouldn't need to know she was 8 years old. So only the key numbers. So I circled 274 miles, 135 and 4 tenths miles, and 87 and 4 tenths. Underline the question or the task, okay? In this case, it's asking how many miles do they need to drive to complete their trip? Now, it might not always be a question. It might say make a graph or create a table. In that case, you have to underline the task, okay? The next one is box math action words. For example, the total distance, all right? Complete. How many? That's the most important one. So that's going to tell us. So boxing off those important math words there. Then you need to evaluate. So I'm going to take this sticky note off here. This is the evaluate part. What do I know? Well, I know that they must go 274 miles. I also know they already drove 135 and 4 tenths miles, and I put in parentheses lunch, and then 87 and 4 tenths miles. That was for gas. That's what I know. The next part of evaluate is what do I need to find? Well, I need to find how many more miles they still need to go. All right. Down here is a little extra we added. This is the engage. They have their standard math practices, and everybody had these in their binder. Those are always there. We use those all year. You have to look at the ones you need to use. I'm not going to go through those too much, but for each problem, it's going to be a little bit different. For this one, like we didn't have any tools we were using. There were no patterns we had to analyze, so we didn't include all of them. There are 8 math practices. We had 5 of them for this. You're going to notice that most problems have at least 3, but usually, 3 to 6 is pretty common. All right, so going back up to cubes, now I need to solve using strategies, showing my work completely using numbers, models, visuals, and or words. Be neat. All right, that is very important because I got to be able to tell what you do. Now, I'm going to open up this in just a minute, but if you do not have enough room to solve it there, you always have paper that you can do it on and attach it. I'm fine with that. Some people like to have a lot of space. All right, now, for this part, it says show my thinking in a visual way, and it gives you some examples. Number line, bar model, area model, array, graphs, tables. And it's not just limited to that. You can draw different pictures that represent it. Using numbers or words to work out a solution. You have to have both of those things. If you only have one, you're going to see on the rubric that you cannot get full points. Okay, so I'm going to take mine here and show you how I solved it. So just take a second to look at that. Okay, so what you can see is I use the number line to do it here, and you can see that all of my numbers throughout the whole thing are labeled. That is a big part of it. You need to be able to tell what you're doing, and we apply that to real life. If you're trying to figure out a math problem for somebody at your job or a certain situation in your real life, maybe it's groceries or something like that, you need to put what the numbers actually mean. Okay, so I actually started down here and then went up to that one. I thought it was easier to start here. I said I need to find out the total distance they've gone so far. So I did the lunch stop, which was that many miles, the gas stop, and I added those together. I made sure I lined up my decimals, added them. So now I have the total distance so far. I went over here and I said I need to figure out the distance still to go. Well, I took my total distance of the trip, 274, subtracted the total distance traveled, and I came up with 51 and 2/10 miles. That's how far they still need to go. Hey, that's answering my problem. So I wrote a little sentence. They need to travel 51 and 2/10 miles to complete their trip. Well, I've only done the numbers to work it out. I need a visual. Well, let's see. I started at 0, and I know I have to get to the end of the trip, which is 274. I did 135 and 4/10. That's their lunch stop. They went another 87 and 4/10. After that, the total of the trip so far was 222 and 8/10 miles. Then they had to get back in the car, and I put a question mark. That's the distance they still had to go. Well, when I did that and figured it out, it was 51 and 2/10 miles. That gets me to the end of the trip. All right. Now, here is the rubric on how to get a 5. Don't worry, I will put this back up. So far, I've only done the number sentence and the label model. Okay, I still need an explanation to include all of the following: the what I did, how I did it, and why I did that. All right, so now I'm going to show you my explanation. You can see here, if you only have those two, you're only going to be possible for 2 points. Okay, if you only did a number sentence and that's it, you're only going to be possible for 1 point. And that's if your number sentence is appropriate to the problem. So it must be labeled. Okay, so this one here, I need to explain my strategies with math language. What did you do? So what did I do? How did I solve the problem? And justifying my reasoning. This is probably the most important part. Why did you do this? Because I need to know, why did you subtract there? Why did you multiply? Why did you add? Whatever you might have done. So I have my explanation here. All right. I first added the total distance the family had already traveled. That's telling me the what I did. I added 135 and 4/10 miles for the stop at lunch and the 87 and 4/10 miles for the next stop for gas. That's still telling me the what I did. I haven't told you why yet. I lined up the decimals and got a sum of 222 and 8/10 miles. So I told you how I lined up the decimals. This is the distance they traveled so far. That's my why. I told you why I did it. That's the distance they traveled so far. I need to find out the remaining left because it says how many miles. Therefore, I need to subtract the total traveled from the total of the trip. That is also my why. I'm telling you why I'm subtracting, where it's coming from. I'm showing the math language that's telling me to do that. I subtracted 274, which is the total trip, minus the 222 and 8/10, which I already found out was the sum of what they've gone, to get 51 and 2/10 miles. That's what I did again. This 51 and 2/10 miles is how far they must go to finish the 274 mile trip. That's my why. I also drew a number, oops, I forgot to put number line, so this is me checking my work. A number line to map out the trip. That's my how, and there's my number line. All right, so I go back to this, I solve it. Number 4 is check my work. Do the task again. Now, you don't have to completely do it again, but you do need to check your calculations. Did I address all parts of the problem? This is the biggest one. So many people will do the what, but not the how and the why. Okay, the what is the easiest to do. The how and the why is especially the hardest. So many people will do the numbers, but not have a visual way. Okay, and if you do not have all of those, you cannot get a 5 on our rubric that we use. And this rubric is very important because it is our problem-solving rubric, and they will see problems like this